All right, Derek, listen, most people have time that they can give, right? Time is worth something. Time is actually the most valuable resource. But you're saying that if people, or specifically business owners, could give you 2 hours, that could be worth $10,000 to $250,000. Is that true?
Yeah, every single year. So we've got a simple way we're going to be talking about where most business owners can recapture that money and overpay taxes. And it's so easy, you're not even going to believe it.
But why doesn't everybody know about this already if it's that easy?
Well, I'm going to go over that, but it's one of those things that a lot of people feel like it sounds too good to be true. But the reality is this: the way the tax code works is it's about 7,000 pages. There's about 50 pages on how you pay taxes. The rest of it is on how you don't pay taxes. And the government incentivizes you to do things you want. Like if you didn't know about it and I told you, hey, you get a tax break for having a kid. Well, you're going to have a kid anyway. You get a tax break for owning a house. You need a place to live anyway. You're going to get a tax break for starting a business. You were going to do that anyway. Those would sound too good to be true if you didn't already know about them because you're like, well, crap, that was stuff I wanted to do anyway. These credits are the same thing. They're things you're already doing in your business. You just don't realize that they create credits. And so there's a lot of skepticism around them. And that's the biggest thing.
And it's funny, Derek, when you first told me about this, I was the skeptic. I'm like, it can't be that easy. There can't really be this thing. And it's this thing we're going to get into, the R&D credits in keyword credits. I'm going to talk about credits versus deductions. That's key.
Yes.
But, when I heard about this, I'm like, this has got to be the single greatest time in at least my history of 48 years for something like this, because we are in that point in time, kind of like the Industrial Revolution, where everybody is making this technology shift, where every business owner, literally, you are forced, whether you know it or not, to make investments into your company from a technological standpoint, namely AI, workflows, and all this stuff going on. And basically, when you told me you can get tax credits for this stuff you're already doing, yet already having, children, already buying a house, already investing in AI, in technology and infrastructure to grow my business into the new millennium or whatever you want to call it. And now I can get
Sure.
tax credits. But before we go into that, there's a huge thing. It actually, sorry, let me go back. I was a skeptic. So I called my CPA, and I have a very high level CPA, works with extremely high net worth individuals, business owners. And I said this to him, and he says, "Oh yeah, we're already doing that. We're using some of the things that he's saying, but I'd love to talk to him." So like I already had the blessing from my CPA that what you were saying was absolutely certain. He even then said, "We did this last year, but now that you're doing this big infrastructure AI build, you're going to be able to do this again." And that's to what you said. 2 hours of time for, we just gave a range, $10,000 to $250,000. Could be more, could be a little less, but like that's credits. But what can you tell the audience? And I think this is really important, the difference between a deduction, like a tax deduction, versus
Sure.
the almighty tax credit.
Yeah, the gap is really big, right? A tax deduction, of course, is let's say you get $100,000 tax deduction. Your income goes down by $100,000. And then depending on your tax bracket, you might save 20, 30, $40,000 because you're in a 20, 30, $40,000 tax bracket. So it's very diluted. With the tax credit, it's dollar for dollar. So if you get 100,000 in tax credits, that's $100,000 you don't pay in taxes. So it's dollar for dollar, very potent. And basically, the credits you get are money in your pocket, not just something you get to write off.
Yeah, I mean, folks, I know a lot of you, especially the higher net worth folks listening to this, like you've heard of businesses or people buying tax credits. Developers often get tax credits. They don't
Mhm.
need them all. So they sell them off, and they sell them off at a premium. Like there's a huge reason for that, like because it's dollar for dollar. It's so much better. But let's get right into this. So R&D credits. Can you explain exactly what that is? And I know you have some visuals. So folks, some of you are watching this and some of you are listening to this. So, Derek knows that there's going to be a lot of listeners, so he's going to explain it. But for those watching, there's going to be visuals here to kind of show you, because the picture's worth 1,000 words. So any of you listening, you might want to go back and watch this and actually like kind of see the visuals, because I think that'll help concrete some of the specifics for you. But Derek, take it away.
All right, I'm going to take and do a quick screen share here for those of you who are just listening. Give me 10 seconds. And whoops, I went to
I
the
love the
wrong
name
one.
of your company, by the way. Big Life. Big Life Financial. That's a really cool name.
Yeah, when I was when I was sitting in a coffee shop trying to decide what to name my company, I thought, what do I really want to do for people? Right? I believe that a name should talk about it. You guys have the money show, right? Or the money multiplier. You have all these things that tell people what they're going to get. For me, it wasn't just about big money, because if you have lots of money but your life sucks, what's the point?
There's a lot
The
of people
whole
like that,
point.
man. A lot of people that have a lot of money that are miserable.
I know. I tell people the real metric is quality of life, right? Or what I call return on emotion. Because return on investment is how much money did I make? Return on emotion is how do I feel about my life? We all want to have the experience of loving our life and feeling good about it. And if you have more money and your life sucks more because of it, I think that's a bad trade. Make less money, focus on the things that are most important, and that's it. What we want to do with money is create choices for ourselves, create options. When you have money, you get to choose what you do or don't do, and that builds quality of life as long as you're clear. So
And I think that's
that
perfect for
that's
what we're talking about. Choosing to not pay as much in taxes. That's a freaking great thing. But also, too, folks, real quick, spoiler alert, if you stick around to the end, we're also going to cover another really important topic for any of you looking to retire. Because some of you might be like, oh, R&D, I don't have a business, this doesn't apply. Hang on. You're going to want to
yeah.
learn this. You're going to want to learn this, whether you're a business owner or not. And then we're going to do a little segment on retirement, but not just retirement. We're going to show you how to literally reduce volatility in your retirement portfolio. In other words, all the fears you have about, running out of money, your money not keeping up with inflation, what happens if the market goes down and I'm taking income. We're going to show you a strategy that was literally pioneered by what is his role? He's got a lot of roles. PhD, Wade's.
Yeah. Wade, I've got his book sitting here. I don't know his official title, but he's like a statistician, mathematics guy who really wanted to figure out money and finances. So he's written a bunch of books on it. But this is kind of his conclusion of the best way for the average person who's not, 50 million wealth kind of guy, to optimize retirement. You can literally double the value of most of your assets by using this volatility buffer. And what I mean by double is the game isn't how much money you have, it's how much income you can take in retirement. Right. And a lot of people don't get that. If you've got $1 billion piece of land somewhere in Florida, but you can't monetize it and you can't sell it, what good is it to you? You got $1 billion net worth and you can't keep the lights on. Right. And people don't get that. It really is about income when you get to the retirement part of your life, or when you don't want to work so hard. And this allows you to create income so much more efficiently with the same dollars. It's mind blowing. And so when we go through that, you guys are going to love it.
All right. Well, let's first cover this R&D tax credits, because I think this is fantastic. And I think all of you are going to love this. And then we're going to get into that volatility buffer strategy.
Yeah. And so the question I always like to ask people is, if you're a business owner or not, have you ever had a really great financial year, but you still felt broke? And I think we all know this, because as you're building something, you're focused on building the business. You're not focused on efficiency, right? You're like, more revenue, more profit, let's do it. But then at the end of the year, you're like, where did my money go? I know everybody listening can feel that, right? Like the first time I made $500,000 and I was like, where did that all go? It blew my mind, right? So this is one of those things that can help you to start breaking that feeling, to start putting money into your pocket. The reality is, as a business owner, you work super hard, but the average American retires at 64. The average business owner plans to retire at 72, but most of them don't. And it doesn't make sense to me why a business owner would have to work longer than an employee, right? So why is that? The reality is, and I joke and say, are you just wanting to work longer? Do you love working more than the average person? I think most business owners who work that long, it's because they feel like they have to, right? And it becomes our identity. So that's part of it. But the truth is, you're being really inefficient. You're pouring all your money into a bucket with a bunch of holes. Taxes is the biggest one. And so I'm showing a chart here. If you have 100% of your income, we're trying to figure out where's your money going. If you make very much money, you're going to realize that taxes are the single biggest cost in your life. Yes, even if you have kids in college, because I know that's a lot too. But taxes can be 40 cents on every dollar. And I have clients in California. I mean, I have a client in California. He made $1 million too the first year that we started working together. He paid over $600,000 in taxes.
Well, Derek, I'm in New York. It's not much different here. I mean, our state tax plus the federal tax rate, you just get decimated. You get destroyed. So we're
I
not
lived
much
in New York
different than Cali.
City.
Yeah, New York City's even worse, but I'm upstate, so I still have that state tax. Like when I first started working with my CPA, I asked him for some tax advice. He said the best tax advice is move out of New York. But he lives in California, so he was joking about that. But he
Right.
was being serious. Move to Florida.
Well, and that's where quality of life comes in, right? If you can be just as happy in Florida as you can in New York or California, maybe it's worth the move. I just know that when we're looking at quality of life, a lot of that is being around friends and family that you really
Right.
care about. And that's the trade off you have, right? A lot of us, where we were born is where our friends and family are, or at least the ones we grew up with. And if that's important to you, then you just stay there and you figure it out. The good news is there's so many tax breaks out there that shouldn't guide your life. It can be a factor, but don't let it guide your life.
Well, I think that's the important thing. Like, I love upstate. I love the Four Seasons. I love the winters here. Friends, yeah, but I'm just comfortable here, right? My mom's here. But it's kind of like what you just said. It's like, yeah, I could pick my whole family up, move to Florida just to save whatever, call it, 500, 800,000 bucks in state tax. But the thing is I can save 500 to $800,000 in taxes just by applying these strategies like this. And then I can maintain my lifestyle, be comfortable, and not have to uproot my family. There's some serious weight to that.
There is. I mean, I my wife's family's in California. We live in Utah right now. And we've considered buying a second home down there. I mean, California's not cheap, right? But I don't worry about the tax piece because I know enough about taxes that I can keep my taxes instead of being in that 40, 45, 50 tax bracket. I know how to keep my taxes down closer to 20 to 25 cents on the dollar. I'm not trying to get out of paying every single cent that I make, but the reality is I can keep that really in check. And that extra 20 to 25 cents on the dollar is a lot of money, right? So so if you're in a high tax situation, you're only getting 60 cents on every dollar. That's crazy. That's just a ton of money, right? You take all the risk, you have all the employees deal with all the headaches, and the government gets almost half. There's got to be a better way. And that's part of what these credits are about. They're just the tip of the iceberg. Um, and you know this, Chris. The thing that everybody misses with this is okay, I just gave 40% to the government, I'm done. But it's not the 40% you gave to the government, it's what that could turn into.
Well, it's the opportunity cost is a huge thing. Just think about this, like
Yes.
on someone making 100,000, or let's just use a million, right? Because it's easier math. Someone making
Sure.
$1 million, right? They give away 40%. That's 400 grand. That's one thing, but that 400,000 can never earn for you another day in your life. That means 400,000, loses all the opportunities that you could have that money earned for you. I mean, 400,000 just by the rule of 72. I mean, the money doubles every 7 point or every 10 years at 7.2%. So just like, I think you've got that math. I mean, it's just
I do.
absurd
I
how much you
do.
give up.
Yeah, and I did some easy math just so you can translate this to your situation. Did you know a dollar you lose today over 30 years it costs you $100. If you invest in, you get 7%, right? Which is a lot of people use as sort of a normal overtime average. So that means if you're able to save 25 grand a year on something like the R&D credits or anything else, or make an extra 25 grand a year, that's worth $2.5 million 30 years from now in retirement. Right. And so when you're talking $400,000, that's $40 million. Like, just wrap your head around that for a minute, people. That's $40 million for retirement. That's not with the big exit. That's not with anything else. That's just, I didn't pay all these taxes. I was able to put that money away instead of give it to the government. And it turned into that kind of wealth. Right. So I did the quick math here. You can see with this $25,000 going in, you put in $750,000 over 30 years, but the total interest for those of you listening is 1.776, right? So you end up with $2.5 million, but 2/3 of that was created by the interest that what you're talking about, the opportunity cost. Here's what's wild. If you just do a little bit of tax planning and you're a higher income earner, let's turn that 25,000 into $75,000. And listen, we help people save $75,000 a year every single day of the week. It is super, super common for anybody earning 400,000 or 500,000 plus. This is totally attainable, more than likely, with R&D credits and a bunch of other little things that add up to this. That's an extra $7.5 million for retirement. Now, I don't know about you, but if I could put $2 million in or $2.2 million in, earn $5.3 million in interest and end up with $7.5 million, that's a nice icing on the cake, right? And here's what's crazy about this. This isn't spending less. You can't have your coffees. You can't enjoy life. No vacations. This isn't saving more, having that uncomfortable conversation with your spouse of, hey, honey, we're just not going to do anything fun for the next 10 years so we can get ahead. This isn't about changing your lifestyle. This is just about not paying the government. So let's jump into it. I see this as the most underutilized tax break for small business owners that exists. And before I get into this, I just want to make one more point as to why I'm so passionate about this, because who's passionate about tax credits? Nobody, right? But the difference it makes in people's lives. I had a client, he had a very successful dental clinic. He was making $400,000 or $500,000 a year. We started working together because he wasn't building wealth. He started working with us to try and figure it out. Ultimately, what ended up happening was 3 months into working together, he told me he was ill. He actually applied for an insurance policy and they wouldn't approve it. So he went to see his doctor. Turns out he has terminal cancer.
Oh,
It was rough. It was really rough. And
I feel that even more than probably the listeners, because I've had that exact same thing happen. Matter of fact, one of my friends from high school, years and years ago, I was trying to get life insurance on both him and his wife, and she was denied. And the insurance company sent back some really interesting stuff that the two medications that she was taking, prescribed by two different doctors, were literally killing her. And she would have died in her sleep within days of that. So like literally like,
wow,
that life insurance underwriting test and in the denial saved her life. And that was thing. But I've also had the situation that you just mentioned where somebody, gets diagnosed with a very serious, illness or diagnoses like this that, they didn't know they were going to have until they find out the hard way. Sorry, I didn't mean to break that. It just hit hard. I just remembered that.
yeah.
Your real estate business lives and dies by the network and the connections that you make. I mean, after all, your network, well, it's your net worth. That's what you always heard, right? If that's an area where you desire improvement, well, Private Money Club, it's for you. PMC saves you precious time and money by bringing the real estate world, well, right to you, right in the palm of your hand. So get in on the action like so many others have by going to privatemoneyclub.com and sign up.
Yeah, this is why we do what we do, because here was the problem. Now, instead of talking about legacy and building stuff for his family and his kids, his conversation to me was, I've been working with my attorney. I have to divorce my wife. I can't sell my practice for what I owe on it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but basically I have to blow up my life so that my family isn't stuck with all the debt that I incurred to become a dentist and buy this practice, right? And to be going through that when you're in a terminal situation, like I have goosebumps right now because it just crushes me, right? And it's completely unnecessary. We often talk when we talk about growing a business, the thing that blows up businesses, there's the 5 Ds, right? Death, disability, divorce, disagreement, like with a partner, or business disruption. These things happen to so many people. You have to be prepared. And the difference for a guy like this would be if we had met 5 years earlier, he'd have a bunch of money put away, he'd have wealth systems, he'd have income outside the business, he wouldn't have paid so much in taxes, and his family would have been in a completely different place than we're going to lose our dad. Mom works at the clinic, so she's going to lose her job. What do we do? Right. And I don't say this to bring you guys down. I say this because it's so easy to put things off until it's too late. You have to do this as you go. Wealth is not built overnight. Just like you can't go to the gym for 72 hours in a row and be good for the year. It doesn't work, right? You have to do this as you go. That's how wealth is built, is one grain of sand at a time builds the mountain. And so that's why I do what I do. And that's why I'm so passionate. And that's part of why I'm not just saying, here's how the credits go and how they work, because they're part of a bigger system. If you just do the credits, that's great. Maybe you can buy a little nicer car, put your kids in private school, whatever, or help them pay for college. But I'm talking about moving the needle to build that big life that you really deserve. And so this is just one piece of the puzzle, but it's such an easy one. Like you said at the beginning, if you can make an extra 10,000 or 6 figures in 2 hours, this starts that momentum. You can use this to fund your life insurance policies. You can use this to invest. You can use this to build your business. You can do so many things with it. All you got to do is take the first step and start to see that this is one of many things that can change the trajectory of your life. So
yeah, and like I said, I think just about every business owner listening, I think they're already doing this. They're already investing money from their company into they honestly, they won't be around much longer if they're not, I guess is a way to say it.
100%. Today's world, almost every industry forces you to compete. Like we own an accounting firm, right? And if we're not using AI to help us file taxes, to do a lot of the planning, we're just not going to be able to do the volume. Things like filing taxes, not the planning, but the actual filling out of the forms, it's going to be commoditized, right? Because AI can do a lot of the really basic stuff really fast and really well. So I have a quick disclaimer. I'm not a CPA, not a certified financial planner. I don't know your situation. I don't know if this applies to you, but if you're a business owner and you're doing innovative things, chances are really good. We've helped over 2,000 clients do these kinds of things and save them. The number here says 50 million. We're probably closer to 75 now in taxes. So this stuff really works, right? I just think it's good for you guys to know. I'm not giving you tax advice. Talk to your tax pro or talk to someone that knows what they're talking about. But this stuff, evidence has proven, right? So R&D credits, just so you know, this isn't some fly-by-night thing. I know there's credits during the pandemic and all that stuff. This is different. This has been around since 1981. It came to the U.S. to help automakers here compete with the foreign cars when they came to the U.S. It has been around ever since. It is not some, hey, whisper, gray letter tax code thing. This is black letter, specifically written in the tax code. Section 41. It's been a permanent part of the tax code since 2015. And this question comes up all the time. Does this flag me for an audit? It does not. And I'm going to prove it to you in a minute. But in doing thousands of these, we've not seen any uptick in audit rate versus our regular tax clients that don't do R&D credits, right? There's no discernible difference. Doesn't mean you can't get audited, but this does not flag you for an audit any more than if you forgot to depreciate a piece of equipment, amended your return so you could get that depreciation. It's the same thing. It's just part of the tax code. Okay, so don't let people scare you. I have people bring up, oh, is it like a conservation easement? No, conservation easements are not listed anywhere in the tax code. This is explicitly listed. There's a weird trust stuff in it. You've seen it all, I'm sure, Chris, all the entity structuring stuff. Like people make up all kinds of things. This isn't made up. This is literally a section in the tax code that is just for this thing. This isn't extrapolating. This isn't making assumptions. This is exactly what the code says. Okay. So you're probably owed credits if you're purchasing upgraded equipment. So if you buy the same equipment you already had because it wore out, probably not accruing credits. But if you bought upgraded equipment, you're probably earning credits. If you've added a new product or service line in your business, and I'll get into why these things create credits. If you've changed the process to try and make things better, faster, more accurate, if you've implemented new software, AI, who's not changing their tech stack, adding AI, trying to get more efficient, better follow-ups, better everything with this stuff.
Yeah, I think every business right now is in the midst of realizing they need to upgrade or change CRM. So that would qualify right there.
Agreed. It would definitely add to it. So if you tried something new, even if it didn't work, the spirit of these credits is when you try new stuff, it doesn't always work. And Chris, it's really expensive. You do a huge software build out, you try a new approach or something, and it doesn't work out. You buy a camera for your YouTube channel, and it turns out to be a piece of junk because you thought it could do all this fancy stuff, and all it did was muck everything up. They know that when you try new stuff, it doesn't work. That's the whole point of the credit, is they still want you to do new stuff. They're like, here's some money for your losses, so that when things don't work, you can continue to grow. Right. And that's really the idea behind the credits. So the meat and potatoes of it is this. There's a 4-part test. If you look this up, if you Google section 41, this is what it comes down to is if you spend $1, it checks these 4 boxes, you're going to get a credit or like a small refund on that. I'll go into the math in just a sec here. Is it intended to develop or improve a product or process? So if you're building a new product or you're making a process better, it's going to check that box. Does it reduce technological uncertainty, which means does it create better outcomes, or do you more consistently get the outcome that you're trying to get? So if you're a construction company, you're trying to do something engineering wise, and that comes out right, you're trying to do that as often as possible. If you're a dentist and you're doing a root canal on someone, you want to make sure that it happens more often the way that you want. That's reducing technological uncertainty. And I would argue almost every business does these two things all the time, right? Where we lose some people is there a process of experimentation? In other words, is this new to your business? There's a misconception that you have to be creating something that doesn't exist anywhere in the world. That's pretty heavy duty in today's world, right? This doesn't need to be new. If it's new to your business, you're trying something that you don't know for sure if it's going to work, then that's a process of experimentation. So like you said, if you're trying a new CRM, you don't know. Does it integrate? Do we like it? Does it work with our workflow? That would be a process of experimentation. And then the last one, is it technological in nature? So does it use engineering, computer science, biology, or physical science, which is mostly like chemistry, right? Almost everybody is using computer science in some way, shape, or form now. A lot of engineering, if you're in anything physical, and biology, anything medical is probably a home run because you're always dealing with new technology there, right? So if you're spending dollars that are checking those 4 boxes, then you're going to get a credit. So how does that work, right? The credit is if you're doing what are called qualified research activities. And I don't want to bore you guys with this too much, but this includes the whole process of, let me just take you through a typical business. You say, hey, we have this thing that we do, but we need to do it better. We got to find a way to make it cheaper, faster, get better results, right? So people are happier. So you've identified we have a problem. All the man hours that go into figuring out, we actually have a problem here. We're looking at the data, or people are pissed, or reviews are down, whatever it is, we got to get better at this. Then you say, okay, let's look at the solutions. Well, there's a bunch of different CRMs or pieces of software out there that could help us with this. Which one? Let's test them. Let's do the demos. Let's do the research. Let's look at, does this fit for us? All those man hours. Then you test it. You try it out. Maybe you do a trial. You try to integrate all that time, syncing it up with everything. And then once you do that, you evaluate the outcome and you say, what is this a success? Do we want to continue to use it or not? And if you do, especially with a lot of things that are in the medical or even construction or whatever, is you end up with tweaking it, right? The first time you use it, you're not the best. Hey, we tried it this way. Let's try a different way. What if we scan this at a different angle? What if we engineer this a little different? What if we do this? That process of getting better and better, of iterating, also creates credit.
Wow. It's almost like after you break all that down, I mean, anyone listening to this, I mean, if you own a business, there's almost no way you're not doing that stuff.
Yeah, if it's based in technology, that's the biggest box to check. Like, you and I doing a podcast like this, yeah, that might not qualify, right? Even if you're adding new technology and how you're putting the podcast out and how you're putting together your systems and your follow-up, it probably is. So you're right, a ton of stuff really does end up qualifying. The big thing is, like, if you buy a piece of equipment, it's not the cost of the equipment. You already get to depreciate that. And between section 179 and bonus depreciation, most of the time you get to depreciate the whole thing in 1 year anyway. What this is it's the wages. A lot of the businesses I work with are service businesses, right? Doctors, dentists, auto repair shops, construction companies, across all these businesses across the board. It's the wages you're paying your people to figure this stuff out, grow the business, make it better, try new technology, new processes, et cetera. Or if you build products, we have guys who create medical devices or supplement companies or whatever. And I'm not talking about like just white labeling of supplement, but if you're really creating your own formulations and testing and figuring out those right mixes, all that's going to count. So all your wages and all your materials. And then, like Chris, I know you're doing a big build out technology wise. All your 1099 contractors you're paying to do things like software development. Those are 65 cents on the dollar, as long as your people are in the US. If they're outside, then that's a little bit different. But
yeah, I mean,
ultimately,
the build we're doing is 100% personnel. It's independent contractors, 100%. I would be curious how that would play, because one of our software developers lives in Spain. So does that exclude him from this?
It might.
But hold on, let me ask it a different way, because this is how it's actually structured. It's 21-month build, and it's a significant amount of money. We pay a gal and her company through where she lives. She lives in Washington, and then she pays the developer in Spain, because it's her company that he's basically contracted with. We did it that way because he's international. But 100% of what we pay goes to this entity in Washington. She then pays the developer. So how would that work? Or would that just be we can use the U.S. contractor, because that's who we're paying, is 100% for this?
Yeah, you're paying the contractor in the US, so it should be deductible. How they get the work done is on them, right? So yeah, you're paying a US company to do it. And it doesn't matter if the work's AI or some other way, right? Like, you're paying them. That's what matters.
Okay, great.
Yep. So yeah. So quick example here for those of you not watching or not looking at the screen. Let's say you have a business that does $1.5 million in revenue, right? Like I said, I work with a lot of physicians, so we'll say they're a physician. They have 800,000 of payroll. We do a little bit of an evaluation. We determine 30% of their time is spent on qualified research activities. So those are your qualifying dollars. So that's $240,000. And then there's a little multiple of 5 to 10% here. This varies a little bit depending on how much what you've spent in the past, and there's some ratios based on what you've done in past years, but that could be $12,000 to $24,000 a year. And what's really cool, Chris, right now, you can actually look back and you can do this. This is one of the tax things you can do retroactively. So you can go back and get the most recent 3 tax years. Right now, that means 22, 23, and 24, but you can actually do 25 proactively as well. So a lot of people can basically get 4 years worth of this credit right out of the gate.
So if somebody did like a big tech build 2 years ago and they're like, darn it, I missed it, they can actually go back and recapture that and get those credits?
They can. And I want to get into this because some of this is because of the big, beautiful bill. This might be why you didn't know about the tax credits before, Chris, is because basically we all know in 2017 there was a tax rewrite, right? That was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. In that, they put something in there where the R&D credit would change in 2022. Thinking because they had to balance the budget, right? They were cutting taxes somewhere, they had to make it up somewhere. R&D was one of those places they said, we're going to make it up on paper, but we're going to amend this before we actually get to 2022. And then COVID happened and it didn't get amended. So for 3 years, 22, 23, and 24, the R&D credits were actually broken. And it wasn't that you didn't get the credits, it's that you had to claim more income. So it wasn't worth it because the extra taxes on the income wasn't as much as the credit. I don't want to get into the details because we'll just lose people. But the reality is pre-21, you got to claim all the credits in the first year and there was no offset. 22 through 24, it was broken. There was a really bad offset, so it wasn't worth claiming them. That's why a lot of people haven't heard about these. But in 2025, the big beautiful bill reinstated immediate expensing, which really means you get all the credit at once, but they only gave us 1 year to go back and amend that. So we actually have until the 4th of July this year, which is why I wanted to get on your show with enough time for people to process this. And you'll be able to do this into the future, but getting those last 3 years is all by the 4th of July. Now, the big thing here is that's going to allow you to get all 3 credits. You will have to amend your taxes. The IRS will send you a check. I'd love to tell you they're fast, but fast and IRS have never been in the same sentence ever.
But the best thing is, I think everybody, at least most people listening to this, because this is, more of an affluent group, when you get a check from the IRS, it looks like a check, right? We all know what that envelope looks like. It's a check. Is that not an exciting feeling? Like I've only received a few of them, but when I've got them, it was honestly like the most beautiful Christmas present because you get it. It's from the IRS, which normally a letter from the IRS is not good. And you can tell it's a check. You're like scored.
Yes, it really is a great feeling. And I love getting them when people text them to me. They're like, oh my gosh, I just got my $50,000 check. This is amazing. Right? Like I love that feeling. But yes, it's a very distinct envelope with like kind of the rainbow looking check and the particular writing. We all know it. So this is a huge opportunity to get basically 3 years into the past plus the current year. The nice thing with the current year is if you haven't already filed your 25s, which a lot of people haven't, then you don't have to wait for a check. You just don't pay the taxes. Right. So this is money in your account immediately. If your business is small or new, it's worth saying that if you don't have at least $500,000 running through the business in top line revenue, not profit, but revenue, and you haven't paid $10,000 more in taxes, it may not be worth doing. You can only get back money you've paid it, right? Like you can carry the credits forward. We're not really in the practice of like with software companies, like you're talking about, having them pay us to do the work for credits they may or may not get in the future if they don't exist. So, but if you've paid more than 10 grand in taxes and you've got $500,000 running through and you're doing some of these things, it's definitely worth a look. The process is pretty straightforward. Got to determine, is your type of business a good candidate for it? I've given a bunch of examples, but there's a million different things that could qualify. Even a company that normally doesn't qualify, if you're doing a software build of any sort, chances are really good that there's some credits there. You have to record or document what qualifies. My team's really good at this. The IRS knows exactly what they're looking for. They want the 4-part test I was showing, like breaking down each project is what they call it. And they like specific language and laid out in a certain way. It's not really hard. It's just, you just have to know how to do it. Your CPA may or may not know. Then you run the calculations on it, and you claim the credits. Anything in the past, you've got to amend. Anything moving forward, it'll just be part of your tax return. You'll just have the credit study as part of that. So now you can try and do this alone, or you can get some help. Totally up to you.
Well, I don't think anyone wants to go. So I think a lot of people listening up to, and I didn't mean to cut you off. A lot of people listening to this up to this point, they're like, this is awesome, but where do I start? Do I go back and find all my receipts? Do I look at all my payroll records and figure out what we paid for this and what wasn't for this? And that's a daunting task for most business
Yeah.
owners because they're busy in their business, right? They don't have hours upon hours, let alone a week of time to go in and dig up all this stuff. So I'm sorry, and I don't know this.
No,
I'm
you're
not, like,
good. You're
front
good.
loading this. Is that what you guys do? Is literally do all that work for them?
Partially, they don't have to do the work is the big thing. And let me explain this. There's really two versions of the tax credit. There's the contemporaneous method. This is what Boeing and Google and Facebook and companies that literally have teams of guys who just run spreadsheets and document this stuff. That's what they do. That's not what the small business owner does. And part of what happened in the 2015 when they made it permanent part of the tax code is they made some changes for the small business owner. So they created what's called the alternative simplified credit, ASC. The simplified credit, it's a little lower percentage that you get, but you don't need all that documentation. They will more or less take you mostly at your word. If you get audited, then you produce some time cards, you show, hey, we did these certain things, but you don't need to do all of that on the front end. There is I won't get into it, but there's case law where basically the guy recorded it as an interview and they put it on a napkin and he won in court. Right. So yeah, like that's part of why like Google and Facebook get a higher percentage, you get a lower percentage. Even if you were exaggerating, you were a little off, and I would not encourage that, just be honest. But if you were a little off, you're still not going to get all the way up to where they were. So the government's basically saying, hey, we'll give you a broad strokes approach here. You don't have to have all the details. And you just get a little bit less percentage wise for not having to deal with all the headache because we know small business owners won't do it. Right. So they've literally gone in and said, we want you to do this, but we know it's a lot of work. So we're trying to make it easy.
That's doesn't it sounds the opposite of what you would normally think they would do.
Every once in a while, Congress gets it right. I mean, what's the saying? A broken clock is right at least twice a year or twice a day.
Good point.
Yeah. So no, they really, I think government knows when business is good, people are happy. When people are happy, they don't give the government such a hard time. So they're like, okay, we do have to take care of the business owners because it really does impact how happy our people are. Right. And we may disagree on a lot of different things, but job stability is one that everybody knows is super, super important. And that's really what this is trying to do. Create new jobs, support innovation, help us continue to be a leader in the world. I have this timeline on my screen here for those of you just listening, but this whole thing just starts with a quick 15-minute phone call. Let's assess your business, see if it's the right thing. Are you doing the right types of things? If you're not, we'll just tell you, we don't want to waste your time, right? But a lot of people are surprised that they qualify. If that makes sense, then we'll do a quick 30 to 45-minute information gathering call. We call it a projects call, where we just go through and we document what'd you do, why'd you do it, et cetera. That's the heavy lift. So between those two, it's an hour. Then we gather from you your tax returns and payroll documents usually, which if you're organized takes 5 minutes. If you're disorganized, that might be the other hour. We do a free estimate. And if you like what's on the table and it seems like it makes sense, then we'll send you an engagement letter. We'll do the work. Either our team can amend your taxes for a small extra fee, or you can have your CPA do it. And then you send it to the IRS. And like I said, I say 10 to 15 months because it seems like a year is about average. Some people are a little faster, some a little slower. I don't know why. We'd love to switch vendors, but we don't have a choice. So we're stuck with the IRS. But for you, it's really a short phone call, a medium phone call, and send us your tax returns and wage payroll documents, which your office manager or CPA can do. And we do the rest. So it's quite simple. And we've done thousands of these. So we've really got it dialed in. And that's why we're able to make it easy.
So if someone engaged you and there was no tax savings, do they still have to pay you?
No, we get paid a percentage of what you get. So there's no cost to it unless you get something.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we like the pay for results.
I think everybody listening likes pay for results. They don't like to pay for things that are well, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. We think they might accept this, so just pay us and then we'll figure it out later. That doesn't go well. No. So a couple quick examples. Brad, who filed just R&D just for 1 year at the time he did 2021, got $33,710 for his credit for his auto repair shop, right, in the Midwest. They were doing some new things with diagnostics, some new lifts and equipment, and boom, that's 33 grand back in his pocket. Um, Shannon, she's here in Utah, had a garage door company, $141,000 in change for 3 years. So, about $45,000 a year for her, which she was ecstatic about. It helped her continue to grow her business and put some money away. And then Edward, he's over on the East Coast. He owns 6 medical clinics, $427,000. So little like $140,000 a year for him over 3 years. So huge that he's going back and getting 22, 23, and 24. He'll probably get another 130, 140,000 this year for 25 proactively, right? I mean, we're talking real money, and it's very proportional to your business. If you have a very small business, 10 grand is a lot of money. If you have a massive business, 10 grand might not be a lot, but chances are really good that you're going to get hundreds of thousands. As long as you're under $31 million of revenue, then you are going to qualify for this type of R&D credit. Over that, they're not doing the retroactive thing because a lot of those guys were, I won't get into it, but they're doing the old system. So here's really it. File for the credits each year, and this is how you turn this into wealth, right? Reinvest the tax savings in your business or in investments or in life insurance, right? For most people, this will double or triple your savings growth rate. And Chris, you know this. The biggest thing you can impact in how you grow your money is how much you put into the system.
Yep.
The more money you get in there, and buying assets or buying things that always go up in value, the faster that curve grows, right? So this is a way to massively accelerate it. And you can do this every single year. This isn't a one-time thing. The way that the tax code's written right now, these credits will be around forever until somebody changes it. And I don't know too many people who want to go in and hurt small business owners. So let's go back to these numbers again, right? $25,000. If you were to just get that, turns into $2.5 million. $75,000 with a little more planning turns into $7.5 million in 30 years. This is real money, folks, right? I realize $7.5 million in the future isn't as much as it is now, but it's still a lot of money, right? And this is more than most people that I meet are going to save for retirement on their own. So just this one thing, just getting good at the tax game, well, for most people will be more than they save for retirement.
Well, the nice thing too about getting good at the tax game is it doesn't require people to work more, spend more time away from their family. It's just getting smarter about what's in the tax code that allows you to not pay as much in taxes or get money back that you had already paid. I mean, that's what you're talking about. And I think that's the big thing. So when you parlay this over to our next discussion about retirement, if you look at statistics of retirement accounts in this country, like people are screwed. I don't mean to be rude.
Yeah.
Like
No.
the statistics don't lie. Like there's literally less than 5% of the entire population of the US that even will have a fair shot at a good retirement, like what you would call, a retirement income that will sustain their lifestyle. Everybody else, I don't know what they're going to do. I truly don't. We're about to see that because the baby boomers are starting to really show, their numbers are starting to show up. And gosh, it's going to be interesting. So if people don't get smart, especially business owners, because business owners, you don't have pensions in most cases. You may or may not have a 401k. You may or may not have money that you're putting into the 401k just because you're investing back in your company. So this allows you to pull the money back out and or not pull it back out, but not give it to the IRS and just let them go spend it, because I don't think the IRS and Social Security is investing wisely for your retirement. I truly don't. We'll be lucky at our age of, I'm 48. Derek, I don't remember how old you are, but we'll be lucky.
52.
52. So yeah, you're probably still going to be lucky to get Social Security. It's not
Yeah.
looking super promising.
Well, and I think most business owners feel this way. We became business owners because we didn't want to have to depend on everybody else to take care of us. We wanted to forge our own path. We wanted to make it happen. We wanted to take responsibility for our own lives, not put it in the hands of other people. So, to me, relying on the government, God bless them for the things that they do right, is a scary proposition, right? Because the government will go on whether the system works for you or not. That's just the way it goes. So we have to take care of ourselves. I'm not anti-government in any way, but I am very pro be the wheel, not a cog in the wheel, right? You need to be able to wholly and completely take care of your own life, be accountable for your own outcomes, even if there are things outside of those that you don't control. You have to be responsible for it. Taxes is a huge part. It is the biggest hole in everybody's bucket. And here's the cool part, Chris. In 1, maybe 2 hours a month, you can stay totally on top of taxes, right? It's a little heavier the second half of the year than the first half of the year, but on average, if I said, hey, give me 12 to 24 hours a year and I'll help you put an extra 75 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand. If you make a lot of money, it might be 400 grand back in your pocket. Would you take that trade? No matter how you do the math, that's a really high hourly rate, right? And here's the cool part. Taxes don't change that much every year. Yeah, we might get a little bit of a tax rewrite every couple of years, but the tax code by and large stays the same. So once you learn this, you just get to use it forever. You don't have to like keep jumping through hoops and learning new stuff. It's not near as hard as running a business once you know how it works. So yeah, so using tax credits or other strategies, if you're not doing it, the real risk is it could be costing you millions of dollars in retirement income. And I just don't want to see people miss that. So this is a game worth playing. So anybody here who's interested in the R&D credits, you can go ahead and scan this QR code, or you can just go to biglifefinancial.com. We actually did biglifefinancial.com, and just go to the R&D credits. There's a little tab at the top, and you'll be able to get your free credit consult, that 15-minute phone call to see if you actually qualify, and we could take it from there, right? If it makes sense for you, you can do it. If not, no problem. We'll just leave it at that. So let me know if you guys have any questions or if anything's coming up in the comments, Chris. But that's really it. I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I also wanted to give people enough meat that it's not just like, hey, these credits are cool, you should do them, right?
No, I think that's great. And folks, we'll put this up in the description, biglifefinancial.com. So you guys can go on there, get in touch with Derek and his team, and begin the journey to find out whether this benefits you or not.
Yeah. So I guess
are we ready to talk about volatility buffering?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So back a while ago, and it was kind of funny, I found this study that was done by Wade Pfau, I think is how you pronounce his last name. And it blew me away. And I read this thing like 6 times, and I'm just like, this is the simplest thing that nobody is doing. And I did, me and Craig did a YouTube video on the volatility buffer, but we also added infinite banking concepts into it, so that the policy wasn't just a normal, because when Wade does it, he talks about just a normal off the shelf whole life. So we did it with a specially designed whole life. And then we said, okay, well, what if we just take and buy a new car once every 5 years and then recapture and recycle the payments that we would have normally made on the car back into the policy as part of our retirement strategy. And that's all we did in the video. But we showed the other pieces of the volatility buffer and what it does, which we're going to explain right now, in verbatim. But just by that one change, I can't remember what it was, but it added a significant, it was like an extra 15, depending on the cost of the car, but it was like an extra $15,000 back to that retiree that they can then use for the retirement. That 15 grand was money that they were giving away every single year on car payments. So wherever you want to start with this, Derek, because I know you're passionate about this volatility buffer. And I remember when we
Yeah.
first talked, we're both like, yeah, we kind of had that moment and we're just like,
Yeah.
why doesn't everybody know about this? So let's just take just a few minutes to kind of unpack the basics, the basic fundamentals of volatility buffers.
Yeah. Well, and I think the reason this is so important, Chris, is everybody out there, I'm just going to pull back the curtain here, right? People who sell life insurance think it's the way, the truth, and the light. People who sell the stock market think it's the answer to everything, right? So many people are just trying to get you to do just that one thing that they control, that they get paid on, and that's their focus. Here's the problem. That's not really the answer for anybody, right? You need different asset classes. You need different kinds of money, different things, different tools, check different boxes, right? Life insurance, I think, is the best Swiss Army knife that exists, right? It grows tax-free for sure every year. It's liquid, protects your family. Like, I don't know of anything else that does as many jobs. And I do this whole thing where I show if you use that to buy rental real estate, you can literally get your dollars doing 10 jobs at the same time. It's absolutely insane. So if people only did one thing, that's usually the direction I go. However, there's a ton of people with the stock market portfolio, right? And the problem with the stock market portfolio, I'm going to just show you guys a slide here that I think illustrates it really well. This is something that I got from our dear friend Patrick, who introduced us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is something that comes right out of a. So if you look at this chart, right, we've got $1 million investment for those of you who are listening. And then you've got rates of return, 10%, 9%, -6%, 12, 25, 7, -3, all the way down, right? And when you get down to the bottom of the chart here, you've got $897,000 25 years later. And this is somebody taking out $65,000 a year of income, so 6.5%. So totally looks like it works. It's amazing. Here's what's funny. To the right of that, there's a column where you start with $1 million and you do the exact same thing, but the order you get the returns in. So year 25 in the first column was -7%. That's the first one for the second column. Year 24 in the first column is -12. That's year 24, or the second year in the column on the right. Same numbers, just the exact opposite order. But in the second scenario, you run out of money 24 years, 19 years into it. So this is what we call.
This is super important because this is probably very realistic right now. I mean,
These are real returns, both of them.
Yeah. But I think, like maybe that first scenario would have been applicable for the last couple of years, the longest bull run we've had in history. But right now, with the cracks in the foundation, the change of the cycles right now, you're at a point now where it's hard to believe that the next year, maybe even 2 years, are going to be positive returns. They're either going to be flat or very negative. So that's what this is showing. It's just showing all they did is flip the order, right? The first one, you had a couple of years of solid returns before a loss. The second one, you're just flipping it. Now you got 2 years of losses. And I think this is the one people need to focus on right now because this is probably more realistic than the first.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. This is once you get to retirement, you're pulling income, right? What the thing about the stock market that can be a little bit misleading is you're consistently putting money in if you're saving normally, like a lot of people do, right? Which is great. That's how you build wealth. But you don't always see the bumps and bruises, the ups and downs so much. And you have the ability for your money to recover. The problem with volatility is when you have a down year, if you're forced to sell to retire and use that money for income, now you have less money to recover with. So when the market goes back up, right? Because usually when you have a down year or two, you have some screaming years the 2 years after that to catch back up, right? As the economy recovers. Here's the problem. If you sold on the way down, when it comes back up, you don't have as much to recover from. And this is the math that confuses everybody. So let's say you started with $1 million and then 2022 happens, right? And you go down 25%. So now you're down at 750. If you get 25% back up the next year, you're not actually up to $1 million again. You're only at 910,000 because it's 25% backup of a smaller number.
Mhm.
Right. And so, but even worse, if you were forced to sell as your dollars hit 750 to pull that income out, now you may only have 650 to recover with. Right. And so it creates this problem. And it's the reason that, and Wade talks about this in the book you were articulating. The market may average 7%. It almost never gets 7%. It's either down or it's like up 20%, right? But it ends up at 7%. Why is it when you get to retirement, if you run the numbers, you can only pull 3 to 4% out?
Yeah,
That blows people's mind.
I think that's when people talk to their advisor and their advisor tells them, 4% or 3% is the distribution rate you should be taking. They're like, no, I need to take way more than that. But
Yeah.
that's because that's the only thing that they've been able to pretty much model that has made it the long haul is like a 3 or 4%, distribution. And that accounts for the drawdown rates, and that's the big thing. Like a lot of people don't understand drawdown. And a lot of advisors, no disrespect, but a lot of advisors don't understand drawdown either. We've all gotten pretty
100%.
spoiled with this bull run that we've been in. It's almost like, it's just we're at a point now where a lot of people don't even believe there's a downside to the markets.
Yeah, I agree. They've never. I saw some statistics like people who are millennials have never been through like a real down market. They've had a down year, but like a real down market. This chart shows retirement income withdrawal rates that and what your percentage is over 35 years, right? Of actually being able to have that money sustained. So at 3%, for those of you listening, you're at like 95%. That's really, really safe based on what's happened in the markets. At 4%, now you're down at about 75% chance of success. At 5%, you're below 50%. You're at about 45%. So that means there's a 55% chance you're going to run out of money if you're pulling 5% out of the markets. 6% is way down. It's at 20%, 7% is 10%, 8%. If you're pulling 8% out of something that has money in the market, chances are really good. You've got about a 5% chance you're going to succeed. So, it's pretty
So you're
scary stuff.
saying
Right?
there's a chance.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And I'm saying your chances are way better in Vegas than they are
exactly.
pulling 8% out of your mark. If all you do is have them, and that's why this volatility buffer is so important. It helps to protect all of this so you can pull a lot more money out much more safely, right? So I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I feel like this.
No, this is good. And I didn't know you had these charts. These are great. I mean, these are in the book, but like you actually extracted them and put them into this. So I love it.
Yeah, these are, I think they really help people to see visually. Obviously, if you're listening, that's why I'm explaining them. It's really important that you get that because the market goes up 7% does not mean you get 7% of retirement. And like I said way earlier, when we were talking about R&D credits, it's not how much money you have, it's how much income it creates. The stock market by itself, because it is quite volatile, lots of highs, lots of lows. We know it goes up over time, but because of that volatility, it is a terrible distributor of income. It is super inefficient and it's crappy. And here's the problem. Your financial advisor is probably 10 or 15 years older than you. By the time you get to retirement, he's in his grave and he's going to say sorry from somewhere else, right? Like most of these guys don't know. And it looks good on charts, right? Like it's the same thing with universal life. You look at it on a chart, and if you get 7% into infinity, it looks brilliant. The whole thing is an absolute joke. It's a lie. When you look at the statistics, they don't work. Same thing here. If people think they're going to pull 7% out of their retirement account, the numbers say you've got a 10% chance that that money's going to last. I don't know where you come from. Where I come from, 10% is pretty bad. It's a way below an F.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the best part about the strategy we're about to explain, and again, folks, we didn't come up with this, Wade did, but this is right in line with what we both do. You're really just changing two things to your retirement strategy. That's all you're really doing. And those two things are going to make a massive, massive difference in how much income you can pull.
Yeah. So you want me to show the charts?
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's explain it.
Okay. So we've got a chart here where we're looking at if you had money in the markets, right? So if you just have an 80-20, 80% in the S&P, 20% in bonds, what would happen with your money, right? So if you have $1 million a year, or I'm sorry, $1 million account balance, and you're taking $80,000 out, you can see here that that you're going to, I just want to make sure I'm saying this right. Each year, as you make money, so the first year you got 16%, right? So you go from $1 million to $1,073,000. Second year, though, you have a negative 4.96. Third year negative, fourth year negative, and you can see your balance going down here, right? And then you run out of money. So this is your typical scenario if you had the stock market portfolio. Now, if we go to the next chart here, we have some life insurance. We use the life insurance in the years where the year prior we had a negative rate of return. So the first year, you got 16%. So you pulled your $80,000 out. You're at $1,073,000 like we were. The second year, because you got a negative, right? And when I say negative, I mean below what you want to pull out of it. In this case, you got almost a negative 5%. What you do is instead, you pull the money from life insurance the following year. That allows your money to recover in the market. You're not forced to sell low like what I was talking about in the last example. It allows your money to dip and then come back and recover. You use the life insurance, you pull $80,000 that year. So zero comes out of your account with the stock market. And in this particular case, we have 3 years in a row of negatives, right? So this was like something like what happened in the mid
early 2000s. Yeah. .com crash.
Yeah. So, and that's probably what this is simulating. Mm-hmm. So you use life insurance to buffer those years because life insurance goes up every single year, right? It's not having the crash. It's not participating in that. So your dollars are holding their value. You let it go through the dip, and then you're going to have this screaming year. So like the year after those 3 years, it goes up 23%. Then you're able to pull from the stock market again and pull your $80,000 back out, right? And by doing this, you can see in this particular example, it shows 4 negative years over this 20-year period, but you still end up with $500,000 a year by the end of that versus running out, what was it, in year 13 or 14 here with the other scenario. So same amount of money coming out, completely different outcome for you. And this is obviously showing some pretty rough years. There's a negative 15, a negative 28% here, 3 years in a row of going down. So if you were pulling out of that, it really eats it away. I usually tell people I like to see, and you can give me your thoughts on this, Chris, for people to have 3 to 5 years or more available in cash value life insurance because it's guaranteed. It always goes up. It holds its value. So if you want to pull $80,000 a year out, I think you should have $240,000 to $400,000 of cash value life insurance as a minimum. Now, if you're doing infinite banking and everything, I think there's a massive reason to have a lot more than that. But I think as a minimum, if you can get through 4 to 5 buffered years, that's going to double the longevity of your money because we usually have 2 down years out of every 8 or 10 in a normal cycle. I think COVID screwed this one up. I think we were about to crash. And then we pumped, just for those of you who don't know, for every dollar that was in the economy, we dumped 60 new cents into the economy. And everyone was shocked by inflation. They think it's because people got $600 stimulus checks. No, that's not it. It's because business owners got the PPP, they got ERC, there was a ton of other programs. So much money got dumped into the system that, of course, we were going to have inflation, right? We're still experiencing it. I know they keep changing the consumer price index, but we can tell at the grocery store and a lot of other places, stuff it's not only going up 2% a year. It's going up a lot more than that right now. So this is going to be really, really important for you to have something that can keep pace with the cost of living and allow you to pull a lot more money out of your existing assets. So
yeah, and a couple things on that. Yes, I definitely agree with like you should probably definitely account for 4 years worth of, drawdown years that you could pull from the whole life. Now, when I did this, there was some interesting things because the video went pretty viral that we made on YouTube. And we had a lot of people coming back asking us like, oh, I went to my advisor and they said, we're already doing this. We have money in a money market. And, then I had somebody else use a municipal bond, and we actually put out a white paper. We have two white papers out. We did one white paper showing the like a 30-year history of a municipal bond index against whole life insurance. And there's been other studies done, showing this. The whole life beats the municipal bonds and still maintains the tax-free nature that the municipal bonds can give you. But the whole life in this scenario can give you a way better vehicle, because like you said, the Swiss Army knife component, first and foremost, the whole life is self-completing. Municipal bonds are not. So eventually when you die, the death benefit from the whole life replenishes the pot. Municipal bond, when you die, there's only whatever is left in there, right? So if you're using municipal bonds as part of your retirement, hopefully you die with very little. And that means you had a long, good life and you used up all the assets that you saved. The other thing that the whole life has the ability to do is you can take loans from the whole life without interrupting the compounding nature of the growth of the whole life. And that's kind of what we showed in our study when we added the infinite banking concept. We showed the car. And that's all we did. We just did cars, and you could use it to pay down debts. A lot of people going into retirement have debt in one way or the other, or their kids have debt that they're covering. That's usually more the case of it. It's like, oh, my kids have student loan. We help them pay that. We help them pay their car loan. So when we did all that, that actually made the numbers look a lot better than what you just showed. But it just took what Wade's volatility buffer showed and then added another level. Now, how we also did it, and this is all in Wade's, is we took a portion of those retirement assets, that $1 million, we reallocated them to an income annuity, a GLI, that paid for their basic expenses. So now we took the risk off of the portfolio to pay for their normal living expenses, which they projected forward as to be, a percentage of what that total 80,000 was. So that guaranteed an income for the rest of their life that paid for their basic expenses. The rest of the investment portfolio had the ability to grow. And when it went negative, like you showed, that's when you started to use the volatility buffer, which was the loans the withdrawals up to basis, which is the cost basis, and then loans. You took that from the whole life. We just added the infinite banking concept. So a lot of people listening to this, they might be getting a little kind of spun out. Here'd be the easiest strategy. You're saving for retirement now. I guarantee most of the people listening to this in some way or another are saving for retirement. What we're basically saying is take some of the money you're saving for retirement, reallocate it, move it over to one of these guaranteed vehicles, okay, that I'm talking about. Not the GLI, that's done at the time of distribution.
It's a different thing, yeah.
Yeah, the whole life, right? The specially designed whole life. Move it into there. And then when you put it all together, you're not really giving anything up. You're gaining what you just showed, because now you've got this bucket of liquid money that is in a tax advantaged account called whole life insurance that you then can use on the drawdowns of those years when the markets go negative. And there are going to be years the market goes negative. To any of you thinking, oh, the markets have been positive forever, and the millennials have never seen a downside to the market, but they're going to. And when
people forget, Chris, 2022 was negative, 2018 was negative, right? So we actually have had a couple of years. And like, if you do the math and you look at 22, where people were at the top before that, and then they went down into 22, and then in 23, they came out, but they actually didn't get all the way out. The market was up 25%, but it wasn't back up to zero, like I talked about. The next year, you got another 20%. So you were maybe 10% ahead, but that's in 3 years. So it feels like we have oh my gosh, we had 2 years of 20 something percent up. But if you average 10% over 3 years, it's like 3 1/3%.
Exactly.
And you're paying your advisor, right? He's probably getting 1%. So you're really making like 2% on your money.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, people don't look at it that way. They just look at it at face value that year, and they need to average the whole thing out. And that's why sometimes the returns, the average rate of return that people are telling you, oh, this fund is average this return, it's complete bullshit. Oh, this IUL, the hypothetical participation rate is at 7% because we used an average in the market. It's complete and utter bullshit. And I don't mean to swear, but there's no other word. Bullshit. Shit is the word. So you really just got to do the math. And then when you do the math, it'll scare you a little bit, but that might not be a bad thing because it'll force you to think differently, because that's what you need to do. If you just keep doing what they've always done and expect different results, well, guess what's going to happen? Nothing different. You're going to struggle. You're probably going to run out of money. You're then going to have the same problem so many retirees do, and that is got to go back to work. Listen, I live with this every day. My mother, is still working. I send her a check every month. I think weekly or monthly we send her a check, but she's still working. My father can't work anymore, but they're both retired from GM, so they had GM pensions. She had to go back to work. So like I see this every day. Like people retire with the best intentions. They think they did everything right. And then all of a sudden they got to go back and get a side job. They don't want to be there working. People at Walmart don't want the people you see, the greeters at Walmart. They don't want to be there. They're not there because like, oh, I got bored and I just couldn't think of anything better to do with my time than come work at Walmart. But like, seriously, they do it because they have to. But you don't have to be like that. You can change your dynamics of your retirement and your future by making small shifts. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And if people are asking, where do I get the money? Well, go back to the first part of this recording, right?
That's a good point.
Take the tax savings. And listen, here's what I tell people to do. Save like you're going to pay taxes full blast. Then do all the tax strategies and cut that in half. And all of a sudden you got an extra $20, $50, $100, $200,000 that you were going to send to Uncle Sam anyway. But now your brain's like siphoned it off as like, this isn't my money. It's the IRS's money. Oh, I didn't have to pay as much. I've got this chunk of money. Now you can do something with it, right? And so it's like a way to trick your brain. And I think you know this, Chris, a huge part of this game is tricking your brain into doing the right stuff, right? If we put something in a place that we have it designated as savings versus spending, we have a tendency to not touch that money. And then we can put it to work, right? So these kind of strategies, putting things together, and this is what I think most advisors don't do. They're just looking at a one-trick pony. It really, to do it well, if you look at the best guys in the world, the Ray Dalios, what does he have? The all-weather portfolio. You look at the smartest universities in the world, whether you like them or not, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, they know how to manage money. Guess what they're doing? 8 to 16 asset classes. They all check different boxes. Like you said, the annuity checks a different box. Life insurance checks a different box. Money in the markets or private investments checks different boxes. Real estate does certain things. They all have their place. And you want to just understand what's right for you. What I love about life insurance so much, sorry to harp on life insurance, but it just creates liquidity that allows you to do all of these things. It's a place where you can build up the money tax-free and still have access to it to build your business, to do the other investments, to do all the other stuff. It just creates massive positive efficiency for you and allows you to do everything else better. And listen, if you're getting your 6.4% inside of life insurance tax-free, if you're at a high tax bracket, that's like 9 or 10% safely. If you've got a better place to put the money, pull it out, put it over there, do the other things until that's not better. And then you put the money back, right? But what it does is it raises your floor from 0, like a regular savings account, to 6% plus tax-free, depending on where your money's going, which company you're using. But it is so hard to beat that level of consistency. And if that's the worst you're ever going to do, you're going to be way better than most people. And it just creates the opportunity to do all those other things as they come along.
Yeah. And I'm going to take something you said that's important for people to understand. It's not the whole life or the S&P. You don't have to decide. It's like our buddy Caleb in his book, The And Asset, said, it's this and that. You can make that return, that 3 to 6% in the whole life, on an IRR, and the return on the S&P 500. It's not comparing, it's both. You're making money twice on the same dollar. And that's the thing a lot of people miss. They're trying to say, oh, the whole life returns suck. My advisor said they don't even keep pace with inflation. It's because your advisor doesn't understand how it works, because they're trying to make a comparison to keep their money under asset or their assets under management. So they keep dinging you for percent. That's all it is. Like, otherwise they'd be showing you these strategies. They'd be doing this for you, but they're not. And it's a shame that they're not. Some are, the good ones are, but most of them are not. And it's only hurting you. And you're just buying into a false narrative. You really are. Will Rogers said it best. He said, the biggest problem in this country isn't what people don't know. He said, the biggest problem is what people think they know that just ain't so. And that absolutely is what holds people back from doing strategies of exactly what you just showed in the volatility buffer, thanks to Wade, and all of his math and wisdom that he put in. And he's way smarter guy than us. No disrespect, Derek, but Wade's just, he's just,
I'm with you.
He's a savant. I got a savant up in the front in our RIA, Stefan, and I can't ever even sit there and try to say that I'm smart when I'm talking in the same context as them. But we can learn from these people. But it's not the learning; it's the application. So, like with your R&D credits, everybody on here just learned how they can put money back in their pocket, get money that they would normally have to give the IRS back. All they need to do is they need to apply what you just said. And the same thing with the volatility buffer. That isn't hard. Just apply it. Learn it, apply it in your life, apply it into your retirement, and things will change. So, Derek, this has been amazing. And folks, remember, if you're still with us, like we're going to put all this information in the description. So you can just click the link, go on there, learn about the R&Ds, do your 15-minute call, decide, is this worth it or is this going to benefit you? Because, hey, listen, the juice has got to be worth the squeeze. And you're going to find out in 15 minutes, or maybe we'll call it, an hour. You're going to find out in an hour's time whether it makes sense for you. And the volatility buffer, that's up to you. Just decide whether it makes sense. So, Derek, I appreciate your time and your energy and putting all this stuff together for today.
Absolutely, Chris. I really appreciate being here and talking with guys like you who really get it. And I'm just glad to see that you're leading the charge out here, helping people to understand not just one little piece of the picture, but the big picture, because it's not just one silver bullet that does it. Just like in business, it's not one silver bullet that makes it all happen. It all has to work together as a system. And you're one of the few guys I know who's actually teaching it that way. So kudos to you.
Appreciate that, man. And I know you're doing the same thing, which is why you're on this show and why we're trying to bring this out to the masses and get everybody, used to hearing these different things that most people would just say, oh, that sounds too good to be true. Well, it's not. And let them say it's too good to be true, but don't be the one that doubts it. With that being said, folks, thanks for joining us for this episode of Money School Elite. We'll see you on the next one.